You guys fight it out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Never mind.
The point is moot.
Just about to get designated.
We were waiting for you, Larry. Good job, man.
Good to see you here.
Hi, good to see you.
So, last meeting we finished at 7:00.
Yeah, no, I know. I know what you're gonna say.
Now let's overachieve.
All right. Good evening, Dan. Tonight, we're gonna open the meeting for the Village Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Webster. And the date is January 16th. The time is approximately 7 o'clock. Tonight's agenda, we have one item to deal with, which we partially deal with in the December one. So that's just lets everybody know that. We've got a standard process. I'm going to lead us. We're going to stand up. We're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Then I'm going to ask folks on the board here if they've had a chance to review the meeting minutes from the last meeting, and if we want to approve them as they're written, or do we want any changes to them. Then we will announce the minutes from our meeting, motion to thank, all right, then thank everybody. We'll then get into our position of asking our folks who are here to tell us what it is they want to do, even though we heard it last time. Just, if we make this quickly, we'll move along very quickly on it and try and be as fair as possible. So with that, we open the meeting, stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks everyone, and that takes care of that portion. The only thing I didn't mention is we will open up this meeting to the public. If there's anyone from the public who wants to speak for or against the item that we're dealing with. So having said that, got our meeting members here. Anyone who was here, we don't have any alternates on tonight, but we've got both of them at the table, so thank you very much. You've gotten your meeting minutes in the package. Does anyone have any comments and any corrections to that? Or do we have a motion to approve them as written?
Well, I wasn't here, but I will make a motion to accept the minutes from December 19th.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to accept them as written. Do we have that seconded?
I'll second that.
We have that seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Very good. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you taking a look at that. So in front of us, what we have is we have Lori and Scott Speck. They seek to install a fence closer than what's allowed pursuant to the Village Code, Section 175-65B and C, believe it or not, it has that. The applicant proposes a fence to be built within the 40-foot of the front property line and higher than 4 feet. And essentially what happens is you're on a corner lot, so if you're on a side lot, it moves to 60 feet, and you've got that 4 foot, you've got the 4 foot wants to go up to. In the last meeting, if I recall correctly, you said you thought you might want to withdraw the closeness, and if you put it back at 60 feet, you were good to go, but
No, we have to change that.
there you go, and that's exactly what, so why don't you get up, tell us who you are, I think we all know that, and tell us what it is you would like to do.
I'm Scott Speck, this is my wife Lori, we live at 250 Curtis, corner of Maryvale and Curtis. We'd like to put up a privacy fence on the corner, on the Maryvale side of our house that is within that 40 to 60 foot range. It's 16 feet to the 60 foot, and it's within the setback.
So what happens on a side yard like this, I can tell you what it does, it moves everything back to the 60-foot part, particularly for the height of the fence.
Right, 8 foot high, And I'm
Six
within
foot.
6 foot is what we
Okay.
understood last
Oh,
time.
6 foot, right.
It can be either, I mean,
No, it's 6 foot because the
6 is it, okay.
existing fence is already 6 foot.
And as I understand what we talked, and then I went through and I took a look at the meeting minutes, what we did is we said you're gonna put it at the 60 foot or greater, so this was a kind of a moot issue at that point. Now what I understand is it's probably closer to somewhere in between the 40-foot line and the 60-foot line, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know exactly where in that space it's gonna be? In other words, if we took a tape measure, measured it from the road out, are we gonna have a distance?
I'm putting it at, he's gonna need a 20-foot setback.
So he wants all 60 feet then?
I think he's gonna need it from the measurements that I took when I went with him, to what, you know, from where the 4 foot is to where 6 foot are allowed. It's gonna be pretty close to a 20 foot. He was thinking it was more along the 16 feet, but I think
Yeah, he looked like.
side in the, I'd rather side more in, you know, more of a setback if it's not needed, he doesn't have to.
So if we take a look at this, and everybody got this today, there's 2 lines on it. There's one of them is the 40-foot line, and the other one is the 60-foot dashed line. What I'm hearing is that, and you guys are the important ones here, tell me whether it's correct or not. You want to put it at or near that 60-foot line? So what we would do is we would give you a 20-foot variance. So if you put it at 18, that'd still be okay, but you couldn't go past the 20. You couldn't continue that.
Right
Is that,
now, it's 16 foot from the 60 foot in from the road. It'll be 16 foot back into, toward the 40 foot.
He's measured,
I
what he's done is he's measured all the way to the road, to the gutter.
okay?
But you have the setback
Yeah.
that's required, so we have to measure from the setback. to
Well, what's
where he
on
wants
this
the
map
fence.
is from the setback. Setback 17 inch or 17 feet from the curb. And I measured the 60 feet from that 17 feet and put the fence there.
On that line. So you take the whole 60 feet, you can move it any place you want in between that 40 and 60 foot.
Correct.
But it couldn't go any, the 20 feet would be the maximum.
Correct.
We're gonna give you, okay. You guys got all that?
Well,
No.
Did you follow it?
No.
There's a slight radius to
Yeah.
it, so it gets a little bit tricky. You know,
Yeah.
you just gotta follow the radius, basically.
this
Just
number right
in
here is
front.
16.
Radius.
The fence is gonna be 16 feet back from the 60-foot line.
No, the 16 foot is extended from the 40 foot existing fence right now.
That's what I thought it
And
was.
then there's gonna be a 12 foot angle.
Existing.
And
No. This 16. That's pointed at the fence, the new fence.
I don't,
Take a look here. I think you get the same one, but that's,
right.
this is
What's
the one
this
that he's
16?
talking about.
Here's a 60 foot mark.
Yes.
And this fence is now 16 feet from that 60 foot mark.
All right, so you're 4 feet from the 40.
Correct.
So you're 44 feet
In,
to the fence.
correct.
That's all we need to know.
Okay.
Which we get the 16 feet relief.
Thereabouts.
Except from where
44
he was
feet.
showing me a little bit further, so that's why I said, let's do a little bit more just in case it's, but he can obviously stick
So-
it to 16 feet if he wants.
Adjusting for the bend in the road at the base of the street there, is 16 feet still right, or is it 20?
I feel as if it's a little bit closer to the 18 mark, but again, if he wants to stick with the 16, then we'll just make sure we install it at that.
And why don't we just make it at 20 feet? And then if he wants to put it at 18, he'd still be okay.
Right,
Give them enough to,
right.
I call that play with it.
'Cause I know
if you
when
want
we
to.
were-
You got more space.
Because I know when we were measuring a little bit, it seemed like it was just a hair in front of your garage, but this shows behind now. So like I
Oh, it's
said,
just a hair behind.
so it seems like, like I said, there's a little bit of room from where we wanted it a few different times, so I'd rather just side on the caution.
Well, is there anything wrong with making it 20 feet?
No.
That says you
No.
can go to
No, no, no.
20 feet behind this 40-foot line, or you can go to the full 60, or you can actually put it any place in front of that you want. You can't go past that 20 feet, though.
Right,
Does that work for you?
yes.
I don't know how everybody else feels, if they've any comments or questions on that.
The little corner lots can be a little tricky as it is, so.
20 feet will get you, even though there's gonna be a bend to that line.
Well, 20 feet gets them to the 40-foot setback.
Right.
You're allowing the fence to be up to the 40-foot setback.
They can go with it,
granting
yes.
You're granting a 20-foot variance.
Right, because they normally have to go to 60 feet
Correct.
because of the 6-foot fence. I agree with that.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody? Make sense, Chris, or?
Yep, I'm good. I'm writing the words for the motion.
Okay.
There you
Well,
go.
before, one thing this board needs to get in the habit of doing is, according to New York State law, according to the village code, there are 5 factors that you have to make findings regarding in order to grant an area variance. And you should put them on the record. And those five findings are on this handout that I think all of you got.
No, they have not, because this is the
Well,
new
here,
form.
pass
They should have the old-
that down to the chairman. But they're set forth in section 17576D of the village code. Whether or not an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment will be created by the granting of the area variance. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, and whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
Did we do this set of questions at the last meeting?
No.
We did not do them,
No,
okay.
because Mr.
He withdrew the
Withdrew his
application.
application,
I know.
so you didn't take a secret motion either, because he withdrew his application. Look at the minutes. The minutes reflect that you did not take a secret.
Yeah, it's right there.
Actually,
It is there.
it is in here.
It said, well, okay. I got to the part where it said it was a type 2, but I didn't know whether you actually took a motion. It doesn't matter, it's still the area variance.
Well, and that was gonna be my question to you.
They're all type 2.
Do we have to do that again, or can we just leave that in
Well,
here?
since he withdrew his application, you need to do it again.
Anything else you want to add? Anything else, Lori?
We have to resubmit this again?
No, you guys.
Well, I had
No.
asked, and I don't know if you did this, that you at least needed to come in and redate your application. So it was dated after the date of December 19th, when you actually withdrew that application. So I don't know if you did that or not, but.
Yes, they have signed.
They've signed and dated it.
Okay, so it's dated after December 19th. So in effect, that's a new application.
Other thoughts or comments? See if anybody on the board has any thoughts or comments on this. There was at least one question that I got. Go ahead, Pete.
Those 5 criteria, I think they're in the application, correct?
They are somewhere in there too.
Yeah, so those questions, at least.
They're
Mr.
answered,
Specs,
they're answered by the applicant, but
Right.
obviously,
we have to answer that.
right, they don't carry any, you know.
All right,
weight.
so one thing I have to do here is see if you guys have anything else to say. If you don't, what I'll do is I'll open it up to the general public, see if anyone wants to speak for or against it. No one spoke the last time, but give them an opportunity because essentially, we've taken away the pulling, the withdrawal.
Correct.
Okay. Larry?
So not only being late to this meeting, I'm having late to understanding what we're doing here. But one of the things that you're pointing, Mr. White, and I agree with you, is that this findings and decisions is a critical component of this. And we don't do that. And so if you ask, like the first question, is an undesirable change would be producing character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties? Frankly, I believe it is. Because first of all, if you walk through the village and look at the corner lots they're beautiful in the village. Those corner lots in the Chance Addition are beautiful areas, and they are beautiful because for the most part, there isn't fencing. And so, to me, that's a characteristic that we should have considered. And I think that, personally, by not doing that, we're not doing our due diligence to the person applying for this and also for the village in general. That's my opinion.
Was the property not marked with a sign that this was going on?
The property was marked with a
Right,
sign.
and people could be here if they objected.
There was also a mailing to your
We
neighbors.
also mailed to like 30 neighbors.
There's a
letting them
mailing
know.
and a certified copy that you guys did not see last time, but they did have this last time as well. I wasn't at the meeting, so I couldn't show it to you, so I apologize for that.
Did anyone submit anything
Nothing.
for or against it?
Nope.
Okay. And no one spoke out for or against it at the last meeting. If you're done, I'll open it up to the general public, see if anybody wants to speak for or against it. And I have no one who wants to speak for or against it, so I'll close that portion. So right now, it's open to the board. We've got to do a couple of things. And I would say we ought to be doing this before we vote for or against it.
So that form that you have in your hand is a new form that the clerk made. The other one was it a 2-page, I believe?
Yes.
It's the same exact thing, just less wordy, I guess. So with your approval, we'll use that form.
All right, if you guys are all set, then I'm going to take is there any comments or questions? Thank you, Larry, for the one way in there.
I just had a comment. If the fence goes up, which it probably will, and if in general people say, oh, that was a mistake, well, this can be our mistake, and then that would guide us in the future to not do that same thing again on a corner lot. Does that make any sense?
A little bit.
I'm just talking.
So you're saying if someone saw it and didn't like it,
Well, you know, they haven't come to complain. The sign was out, as we said.
we gave the opportunity for
I'm
people
good
to
with it,
speak.
but it could be a good example. If it turns out to be something that 26 people don't like, it's up to them to let us know that it not be done again on a corner lot.
And
That's all.
I will add in that there are 3 other corner lots very close to this that do have fences. One is within eyesight, so.
So, established precedent is hard to break. Yep. But it's very important that signs go up, there's going to be a change. It's up to the neighbors to say, what are you doing? Respect.
Speaking of signs, I'll come and take your sign down tomorrow.
People are getting used to it.
It looked good. All right, again, I'll ask if there are any other comments or questions. Otherwise, I've got some business to go about here. One of them is going to be the zoning board for the Village of Webster, the area variance findings and decisions. There are going to be 5 questions, which I'm going to read out loud. I'm going to ask you to say yes to them, or give me the problem if you have one. So number 1 is the finding, whether an undesirable change would be produced in character of neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties? Yes or no on this particular case? I'd say no.
I say no.
No.
Blair?
I already said yes.
Thank you. Okay, the number 2 is whether benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance.
I could say yes.
How would?
Well, they could move it back.
Chris gave a feasible alternative
Right.
a month ago.
Right, the alternate was to pull the fence back beyond the 60-foot line, and then you got no issues. But
But you haven't done that.
he's here,
That's not,
obviously, saying,
not what we
no, I
want."
wish to pursue an area variance between
Okay.
the 40 and 60-foot line.
Larry? Thoughts?
I agree with it, that's an alternative, that's a positive thing you could do.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Whether the requested variance is substantial, the answer is yes or no, and the rationale for your decision.
I say no.
I would say no.
I don't think it is either.
Although, if you look at case law, it talks about you should grant a minimum variance that's needed. Whereas you guys are actually granting more than what he asked for. He said if you wanted the 16 feet, you're gonna give him the 20 feet.
Fair enough? Larry?
Well, be consistent, yes, I think there's another alternative.
You know,
Okay,
And frankly, I'm confused why you went to 20 feet when he asked for 16 feet.
Well, I think our code should be revised because I think the 60 feet is ridiculous.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Well, but that's,
The
but that's
code
why
is-
we're here having this
the-
debate.
The code is the code.
Exactly, so that's why we're going, I think, with the 20 foot.
and one, for those of you who just have a question on this, I initiated that 20 foot. I initiated that because I know there is a bend to the property line and it gives you leeway. It also says if you moved it instead of 18 feet to 19 or something, it gave you, I thought, some leeway without creating a substantial risk to how it would look or where you would want it. Other thoughts? Okay, whether the variance will have an impact, an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood?
No.
I would say no.
I say no.
The physical or what?
The physical or, okay, whether the variance will have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood.
Unless some kid gets impalled by it, I don't think so.
Okay. And the last one, question number 5. Whether the alleged difficulty is self-created.
I think that answer is always yes.
Yes, I think it's always yes too.
How can it be no?
We wouldn't be here if.
Well, it's
Right.
It's not always yes. Sometimes you have pre-existing non-conforming structures, and or you have substandard lots. You know, this one clearly is self-created because
Sure.
the fence isn't there, and you have to put a fence up.
Right.
All right. Based on the above findings, the board finds 1, the benefit to the applicant does outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community, and therefore the request is granted, or the benefit to the applicant does not outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community, and is therefore the request is denied. I'm going to go through a vote on this. I'm going to say,
Well, based
this
upon
for a
the
motion?
violent opposition that has been put forth by the neighborhood, I think there is no issue here.
That would have been where I would have came out.
I would agree with that.
It'd be 3.
You know, I missed last week's meeting, or last month's meeting, but there are a lot of variables that I just didn't see until we sit here tonight and talked about it. You know, it's a large lot, the radius, everything just is a little too much. I don't know. I don't think, and when I should have said it earlier, but when I went to look at the lot, you know, it is such a large corner lot, and there are no fences. I'm not sure who you were speaking of, Aaron, but there aren't any fences around there. I think it's just gonna stand out, and 4-foot fence all over, or 6 foot, what did we say?
6 foot.
6 foot.
6 foot.
Right. I think it's too much.
Fair enough. Larry? Okay, but in my count, that comes to a 3-2 vote in favor of granting.
Well, someone should make a motion.
Well, we did, but, and we haven't got to that point. We have to make a motion to pass this?
Yeah. Yeah, if the motion is granted, then by implication, a majority of the board feels that the benefit to the applicant outweighs any detriment to the neighborhood. Or if you get three or more votes to deny it, by implication, that means just the opposite, that you now feel that the detriment to the neighborhood outweighs the benefit to the applicant. And I should also say, case law also says that if this room was filled with people opposed to it, that is not a factor for you to consider. The same as that there's nobody speaking in one way or the other. You know, you got to make your own independent judgments based on the facts that you have in front of you. You know, because you don't know why nobody is here, probably because it's 20 degrees out. People generally don't take an interest in these kind of things anyhow.
Right.
You know, so, but that doesn't mean they're all in favor of it.
Right.
And your vote was no on that. What I count then, after I'm done with that, is a 3-2 record of vote in favor. So we've done at least the area variance findings in our decision. Now, we still would make a motion.
Right, we still need motions to grant an area variance.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Okay. So Kevin closed that portion. What I'm looking for right now is, from the board members, a motion to either approve or there can be a motion to deny.
But first,
Type
you
2 seeker.
gotta do seeker.
I make a motion that this is type 2 action pursuant to seeker.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, we have a 4-1 there.
You don't have one?
Okay, so having done that, we've done the seeker review, we've done the area variance findings in our decision. Now what we need is a motion for the variance.
I would like to make a motion to grant an area variance to place and construct a new 6-foot-tall white PVC panel fence between the 40 and 60-foot setback limit.
Should give them a variance of 20 feet.
That was what I was gonna
That's what I
ask.
said, between the 40 and the 60 foot.
So in other words, what he's saying is it could be put in a place in there in between.
Right.
So we've got a motion on the table to approve this anywhere in between the 20 and 60-foot line. Do I have a seconded?
I'll second.
Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion is passed, 3-2. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Get a hold of me tomorrow, we'll handle the permit, and if you want to get the permit anytime soon, or if you want to wait till spring. But it does have to
I'll be there
do-
tomorrow morning.
Okay, get a hold of me tomorrow then.
Okay,
All
great.
right?
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Good luck with that, and thank you both very much for coming in.
So I just say
Okay, having done that, what I have here is a little bit of information for you. We are meeting with the town planning or zoning board?
Planning.
We are meeting with the town planning board on the 23rd, which is, today's the 16th, so that'll be next Tuesday. The meeting is going to be here, it's going to be at 7 o'clock. The meeting will be to discuss the preliminary sketch and drawings and things that they're going to do for something that's being planned, and they haven't said a whole lot, but something that's being planned for the Xerox area, which is going to be another use of one of the buildings there. Because that building is in the village, and one half of one building extends into the town, and if anybody remembers this, by the way, we did something for parking over there a little while ago.
about 20 years ago.
It doesn't seem like that long ago.
Remember that application? Yeah.
But,
Was
there
it
was,
parking? I think it was,
it was for the trucks parking.
yeah. I was wondering if there was any other stipulations in the approval though.
We'd have to look at it, but I don't think that there was.
I don't know if you could find minutes for it, or would it be in the final site plan?
You would think, right?
In the new one?
No,
Or the old one?
The old one, the
If
original.
it's still available, I don't have it.
I don't know. Well, the applicant should have it, I would think.
Don't forget this is the new owner, it's not.
I was gonna
Xerox.
say,
I
it's
do
not
wanna-
the same
I do wanna make that
applicant, I
correction.
don't think.
Xerox.
Oh,
This is from
so
Tessie
Tessie
Plastics,
Plastics
the new
owns
owner
it now?
of this 110 acres with several buildings on site.
Okay.
Now, what hasn't been told to us is what is going on there, who's doing what, and what it's gonna look like. So, my question becomes, and there has been no good answer to it yet, is what's going in there? I don't know. What are they gonna do? And what are the reasonable requirements going forward for anybody who would go in there? Because what I have heard is some major modifications to the building, or construction type modifications. And I don't mean, they're not building 3 or 4 stories up on top of it, but around the existing building, they're talking about some construction that's going to take place there. If you have an opportunity, I would encourage you, because I don't have a whole lot more information than that, but if you have an opportunity, you can drive right in there across by, yeah, I got, the only building I couldn't find was 334, wherever the heck that is. But everything else I was able to drive by, 200, 213, I forget what they were. I wrote, 200, 210, and 334 I couldn't find.
334, I believe, is the one in the back that the line goes through and separates the town from the village.
Okay, so that's on this side of the buildings that we're talking
That's on the
about.
north-hand side of all the larger
Yeah.
buildings, yes.
Okay.
And I believe building 199 is included in there, there's several buildings.
330s were cafeteria buildings, as I remember.
Yeah.
Wasn't one of those
Originally.
buildings for the
It is on all your paperwork that you were given tonight. It has all the
training
numbers
and display center?
But here's one of the questions that I have, as long as we have the attorney here, maybe he can tell us, maybe they can't. What's gonna be our expected action after this meeting, or at this meeting, or is this just informational? And by informational, I mean, is Tessie coming to talk to us about written plans, drawings, blueprints, or otherwise? Or is this just gonna be, hey, you guys look kind of nice, I just wanna tell you that we're gonna come up to you and ask you for a change a little later, and we want you to feel good about it? I don't know what anybody's gonna say.
It's, as of right now, it's a non-disclosure, which they cannot legally release the name sooner or later, or along the sooner, they have to, tell us what's going in. As of right now, it's still a non-disclosure, until they basically get the feel of the boards, for the town and the village, if it's gonna be permitted. If it's permitted, then everything will be, a go.
What do you mean if it's permitted or not?
If they think they have a shot at it going.
Yeah.
Or is it the permit of the building modifications?
No. It's just a preliminary site
Yeah,
plan.
it's a-
The overall, in the packets, I know you've kind of seen it compared to what everybody else, but the packets show an in-depth, I believe there's a color view of everything, and then there's actual blueprints now of the whole area and what it is. But they're,
Is someone going to sit on the other side of the table, so is what I'll call it, for lack of a better term?
Yep.
Somebody gonna sit on the other side of the table and say, hey, what would you do if we came to you and asked for this? Because I don't know that we can answer that, or that I don't know that we should answer that.
Well, they're not going to ask that kind of a question. You've got, the town has, as part of its site plan approval, they have preliminary sketch plan. The village doesn't have anything like that. So you're not going to be asked to take any votes on anything. And it's just a sketch plan. It's not the preliminary site plan. But they want to, it's, so in general terms, they're going to describe what it is they want to do and what's it for. And then they're just looking for feedback as to what are some of the significant hurdles to getting what they want. Is it traffic? Is it, drainage? Is it the sewers? Is it, it could be all sorts of things. It depends on what the use is.
So do we have to say that to them, or and that's where I'm driving at.
You don't have to say anything to them.
We can request a traffic study, correct?
Well, but we don't have to at this point.
No, but that is more something after they submit their preliminary site plan. I think they've already been told that a traffic study is going to be needed.
yes, yeah.
Well, and that's just my personal view. I've gone over there and I've sat down, so I know what the traffic looks like. I don't want to see a 4-year-old traffic study. If they bring that out, I would vote to send them back and say this is not current and it doesn't do the number of traffic or the number of vehicles that are potential, but we don't know what's there.
Right. And one thing that I'll add next week as well, this site, the whole site overall is already what its intended use. Even if they get approval, it's still not going to be anywhere near what Max was years ago when the whole campus was full, all the buildings were there, because mind you, they've knocked buildings down already. So it's just new life in an old campus, basically, that they're going to be, and even with this, you'll see that they're actually knocking down part of the building, around 200 and some of the other numbers I forget, to make those loading docks. Basically, the change is loading docks around the whole building. That's what the change is.
Yeah, I know.
Along with, switch stuff that has to be maintained now to meet the requirements and stuff. So like I said, this is already an industrial site that had heavy traffic before, and they just announced a 15% reduction at Xerox, which is going to cut more cars from what's there. They've announced a 50% layoff for the campus again.
15%.
15%, yes.
There can't be that many people, but.
So-
They actually, the announcement wasn't, they were going to cut their employees by 15%. They didn't say where they were.
They didn't say
It's
which
not
building.
necessarily 15% in Webster. It could be,
Gotcha.
because they've got.
Could be in Connecticut someplace.
Correct, that's correct.
But what's my statement on that?
So at some point, at some point, they're gonna have to begin to tell
Yeah.
somebody what they're doing, what's their potential number of employees, permits and licenses that they're going to require, or that we're going to require, I don't know. And all of those things. But that's not an agenda item that's coming out here. Right here, I'm still not sure what they're gonna do other than tell us that, you know, we sat down and kind of drew what we think it might look like.
Well, look, I would suggest that, I'm assuming everybody's got access to a computer, right? Go on the town's website, go to the town code, look at section 269-5, sketch plan review, and read it, because that's what the meeting's gonna be about. And I can read it for you, but it says the applicant shall first have a sketch plan review with the town planning board. The purpose of sketch plan review shall be to present to the town planning board for initial review, discussion and comment, a design concept or plan for the development of a parcel or parcels of land. During the review, the applicant and the planning board shall review and discuss the basic site design concept and generally determine the information to be required and provided on the preliminary site plan. No formal action shall be taken on the plan or the application at the time of the sketch plan. At the sketch plan review, the applicant should provide a written statement outlining the proposed project along with a conceptual design with the following information. And then just, you know, talks about general location of the site, blah, 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 specific about identification about properties, utilities, you know, but that's what it's about.
That's what we did on the planning board.
Well, and that was gonna be the next comment that I was gonna make here, is that what you all should need to remember, and I will tell you right now, the village doesn't have a planning board and a
Right.
zoning board anymore. They have one board.
Right.
And while we do very little planning approvals here, that's the function that this will be taking on in its early phases.
Right, so it's an informational
Well, that's right.
meeting.
Yeah, well, several of you were on the former planning board.
Good point.
So I'm assuming you guys remember, you know, how a planning board works. And you'll educate your zoning board people. It's
I think he pointed at us and said, those two guys.
Planning boards are much more gray than zoning boards and whether or not you grant variances or not. You know, it's, you know, you just can't go crazy basically, but you can, it's a lot of give and take.
Did I hear that the town has had this preliminary sketch review?
That's what next week is.
That's, all right, they're gonna get the same thing that we're getting.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't want Tessie to have to come to two separate boards.
Got it, no, I'm
and
there.
explain the same thing. That's why the town planning board is gonna be sitting somewhere here and listening to the same presentation. And then and all, however number, you know, there's 7 of them on their planning board and 7 of you can ask whatever you want to ask.
Are we expected to tell them the expectations, or do we just stand back and say, Mr. Jones, go forth and tell us what you're thinking about?
Right?
Well, I don't know what you
They
mean
talk,
by-
we listen.
I don't know about expectations, but again,
The town will be doing their
It
portion
says-
of it, don't forget, because it's a joint meeting, so
it
the town
says,
will do their
it
portion.
says, the purpose is to generally determine the information to be required on the preliminary site plan. So again, traffic is probably an issue, so you can, you know, tell them you'll be looking for a recent new traffic study. And tell them which roads you're looking at.
So Don, in
The traffic study, the traffic is a little tricky because they're private roads. Xerox owns Mitchell Dean and Crocus, the other one up there, and so
Well,
you know, so the village and the town have, if they were public roads, you'd have more power to say what you wanted to happen to them. But for private roads, you know, it takes, you
Well,
know,
but they're gonna have to look at what it does to Phillips and 104.
thank you, because it comes out to Phillips and
Right,
Salt,
so
and
they're gonna
And
be
the
using those
express, right?
roads.
right.
So we should have a list like we can expect the town to have. And this is the problem that I have with this. They've got a plan, we've got a plan. Gee, shouldn't we sit down together and have the same expectations?
That's essentially what next week
That's
is.
what you're doing, that's what you're doing a week from today.
You're essentially getting everything together, getting all the information, look at your information that you were handed tonight, write down a list of any questions or concerns you may have.
Okay, so we're not having anybody from Tessie come in?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
that's what I mean.
Them and their engineers are gonna be the ones here presenting to us like normal. And then both boards will have the opportunity to talk. The town will do their portion that we don't have of approving their sketch plan. So they'll do that end of it. And then us, you guys on your end will do any information, findings that you have, and then go from there.
In the town code, was that 269 or 265? I'm sorry,
269.5.
269?
0.5, right.
Right.
Thank you.
269.
Gotcha.
Was the,
269-5.
in our code book, that was listed under the planning board, under planning board. Has that been taken out, or is there still a section there for the planning board?
There's no planning board for Village Webster.
Okay, so that part of the code is
Right.
gone.
And I'll correct the chairman's comment about there's no planning board and there's no zoning board. There is a zoning board, but there is not a planning board.
Okay,
Well,
so
no,
the
but
zoning
see-
board and planning board, that's,
It's merged.
I would
together.
have said there is a planning board, it exists in this room, right here with this group. If something was required.
But
to
under
go
the legal
before-
name, you're still the zoning board. not
Right.
planning board.
Okay,
Under code, that's all I'm specifying.
But-
If you look at the site plan review, the village's site plan review local law, it talks only about the zoning board of appeals.
Right.
Because it was drafted and adopted after the planning board and zoning board were merged.
okay.
And it's because if you have a zoning ordinance, which the village does, by state law, you have to have a zoning board of appeals to grant variances. Villages, towns, cities, they don't have to have a planning board. That's discretionary. Most of them do, but they don't have to.
So this
But
board can
the
act as...
the problem in the village, Webster, like other smaller villages, there just hasn't been enough people, volunteers to actually fill out a planning board and a zoning board. So they thought, well, let's just merge them. But this board does everything a planning board does, with the same authority.
So our hands aren't tied
No,
as
you're
a
just-
zoning board.
No, you're just
We
called.
can still request
You're just called a zoning board. but
You still
you can-
request the same
You
information.
can,
and
so,
suggest.
so, yeah, so have on your planning board hat, just like the old days.
Check the old days, absolutely.
And so, in all the future meetings, so that the next meeting, they're all gonna be joint meetings with the town planning board and this board. So when they come in for preliminary site plan review and approval, it's gonna be both boards. When they come in for final site plan approval, it's gonna be both boards. And the village is, they haven't done it yet, but I believe the village is gonna hire MRB, which is the town's engineer, so it's, one engineer is,
Makes sense.
rather than, the village generally uses Labella, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to have two separate, engineering companies looking at the same project, so.
It's already been stated that the village will be lead agency
thank you.
because 95% of the buildings are in the village versus that small percentage of the one
Except for that
building.
one
and
that's
then
split
par-
right
and
down
then-
the middle.
And then parking, so
Yeah, so,
we will be.
so
lead.
Pete Chatfield is the name of the engineer from MRB. He will be here next week too. So he'll be able to ask and answer, more technical seeker questions, environmental planning, all that kind of stuff.
Very good. Very good, very interesting.
Anybody got any other questions on it? I just thought, get it out there. If you're not gonna be here, let me know ahead of time, just so that I can make sure that we have 5 people. I would like to have 5 people, for this on a regular basis.
Oh, I'll be there, I wouldn't miss this. Finally, got some meat and potatoes here.
All right, so that's 1 week from tonight. It's the 23rd, next Tuesday, it's 7 PM, gonna be right here in this room.
And I can tell you, if you read you probably should.
265, 269.5.
Well, that's the town one, but look at the village site plan review code, local law also, because in there it says, this board can request that they actually tell you who's gonna be using the building. You can ask for the name. And, frankly, non-disclosure agreements, it doesn't run to the village or the town. If they want their approvals, they're gonna tell you who's gonna be in there. Otherwise, they can go away. You can have all the non-disclosure you want, but you're not gonna be able to use that building for what you want to use it for. So you have every right to ask, you don't have to go through this whole thing, give them final, and not know who the heck is gonna be in there.
And in your mind, this is, when you say sketch plan, this is somebody who sat down, in my mind, wrote down on a piece of paper what it looks like and all the things that they're gonna do, and maybe how many dock doors, and maybe how many employees, and what kind of. But is that what they're going to present to
No,
us?
they're gonna present what was handed out tonight.
Okay, and I'm gonna take a look at it.
And it's not, it's called sketch plan, but it's not.
There's no sketch.
It's not literally somebody freehand.
This is sketch.
In this day of CAD drawing, nobody sketches anything anymore, so that term is probably 100 years old. When they actually used to sketch stuff, architects would sketch stuff. Well, that's a lost art.
Are we within our rights to say, what are you gonna do in there?
Yeah, and they'll probably be a little vague, but sure.
Once they submit,
I mean, unless they tell us what they're gonna do, how do we say what we
well,
think?
here's the thing, once they, whether it's disclosed next week, or once they see that there's no catch-22s that they're not gonna be able to overcome, the official paperwork will be submitted, and that will have what it is, they have to at that point. So, it's not like you're going through this whole thing not knowing. Once official paperwork is submitted for your approval, for preliminary and final, you have all the information on it. And like I said, it could be next week, seeing as how the town is gonna be approving or denying the sketch, They may ask, we wanna know right now, Could be yes or no.
All they've disclosed is it's some type of logistics center, which is like a distribution center.
Obvious.
You take finished goods and send them out to wherever your
Right.
customers
Obviously,
are.
they'll be shipping something, because they want 200 docks. 200?
We just don't know.
Well, I mean, that's the stuff that you can begin to think about it, and you can say, if you're gonna put in that many new docks and too many dock doors, you're shipping material. So, you have to think about what impacts will that have on the rest of what's going on. All right, I thought that was a worthwhile discussion. Thanks, everybody, for participating in it. I just wanted to get an idea that, number one, if you can make it, please be here. If you can't, let me know ahead of time. And then I will make sure that we have a minimum 5 people here. Okay?
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
Before you motion, I'm gonna put it on record, Mark, I need you to stay to sign these Mylars that I've been trying to track you down for.
Just drive by with the window open.
So don't leave, please.
Okay,
Okay,
did I hear,
a motion, adjourn?
we have a motion on the table to adjourn, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.